Hi, I'm Lindsay Ruszczyk, Bob's Director of Outreach. We are so excited to be fundraising for Special Olympics. They are our first quarter Cafe Collections for a Cause partner. And what that means is from January 1st through March 31st, we are collecting donations in all our stores coast to coast for Special Olympics. We've partnered together with Special Olympics since 2014, and in that time, we've raised over $400,000 for Special Olympics. I'm joined today by Mary Beth McMahon, President and CEO of Special Olympics Massachusetts. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate being here today and talking about Special Olympics and this great partnership with Bob's.
Great. So my first question for you, Special Olympics provides year-round activities for its athletes, but against the backdrop of the pandemic, how are you engaging athletes at this time?
Well, Lindsay, like most programs and organizations, we've had to reinvent ourselves, and we've reinvented ourselves in the virtual platform. So for the first part of the pandemic, when we were kind of all closed in, we did a lot of virtual programming, a lot of young athletes programming, story time. We had some of our athlete leaders run athlete chats, which have been great experiences because the athletes are actually getting to know each other from different parts of the state and the country. We actually have different athletes from different programs joining those athlete chats, and they play games, they play trivia. We also did our infamous monthly dances because that's one of the favorites of all the events we do. But more importantly, we challenged the athletes to really stay fit at home, and through that did a lot of incentives and then asked them to send videos. And then most of the states across the country, which Bob's is supporting, did a virtual summer games where they used all those clips and brought it together. So what was great about that was there was athletes that may not have been to the games in the past that got to participate in the virtual summer games. So we're seeing a lot of creative virtual programming that will probably continue even after the pandemic.
That's great.
And then after that, just so you know, as states began to open, depending on where they were COVID, we started doing everything within our state's guidances, and we started doing outdoor activities. So most states did things like golf and bocce, and we're all keeping within, the safety guidances that are allowed. And so we then created a program for the fall that was both in virtual and in-person sports training for those athletes that were wanting to come out and do that.
That's great. So since we're talking about the pandemic, I had another question. You and I were in a meeting recently, and you were talking about how this situation that we're all in right now really caused you to have an epiphany about the athletes themselves. Would you mind sharing, what that epiphany was?
Absolutely. It's I've been involved with Special Olympics for over 35 years, and sometimes there's things that happen personally to me that I realize how important Special Olympics is. And through the pandemic, I was in my office one day watching my children do remote learning, and they were talking amongst themselves. And the conversation was really around missing sports and missing their friends and missing the engagement and the high fives and the cheering and the attempting to kind of keep yourself fit. And as I was sitting there, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wow, my kids are feeling pretty much what our athletes felt. And then even more, I realized my family was feeling it, my friends were feeling it, the staff was feeling it, the volunteers were feeling it. So at the end of the day, what it kind of came to me is that Special Olympics was actually important not only to our athletes, but to everybody, so that we could get back on no matter what platform we were on, to make sure people had engagement and could get out of isolation. And if it wasn't for Special Olympics, our athletes wouldn't have that type of program. And so for me, it really motivated us not to just get back to normal, but actually get back to better and make sure we can actually get a lot more athletes involved, a lot more volunteers, and a lot more families, so that we all can feel included again in any way, shape, or form.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. This question isn't on my list, but I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite memory from the 7 years that Bob's and Special Olympics have partnered together? Is there a memory that stands out for you?
Well, ironically, there's a couple of memories that stand out for me, but one of them is this infamous Bob's commercial that I did in your Claymation studio in Manchester.
And nothing spells teamwork like the Special Olympics.
Our mission is all about inclusion. We bring people together through the universal language of sports. We need your help.
It's a memory that my kids now and then look back on and Google the Bob's commercial and see me, and they're like, you're not very good at this. So that's one of my favorite memories. But reality is that what I actually like, and it's happened here in Massachusetts, is when I can go into a Bob's store and I find an employee that is either an athlete or a family member of an employee that wants to get engaged. And I think that's what's really been great, is that you guys are grassroots in your communities and we are grassroots in our communities. And you said it earlier, like we do year-round programming, but most people think of us as the games. And so this pandemic, and I think this partnership have actually shown things, our athletes in the places where your stores are. And we do programs where every community and every grassroots is. So for me, it's when I can see somebody who sees Special Olympics differently, that's an employee of Bob's. So when they can say to me, you do that programming or you do this, I think my son or my daughter would really be part of that. And so when I can connect our movement to them and they can become members of our movement, that's great. And that's happened quite a few times throughout this relationship.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. Folks who are listening, if you want to visit at Bob's anywhere coast to coast, 135 plus locations, and make a donation from Special Olympics, we would very much appreciate it. Thank you and have a great day.